Welcome, Leo, to your in-depth monthly horoscope for October 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout features to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs, particularly relevant to your sign. Now, Venus is a very glamorous influence in the sign of Leo, and it's been with you since the 5th of June. But she is going to make her way into a new home. This is on the 9th, but it's going to be initially met on the other side of the heavens by Saturn. So that's quite complex, but I will unpack that for you. Now, also the Sun and Mars are both in the sign of Libra as this month begins. But for the Sun, that is known as being in full, and for Mars in detriment. What's the implications of that? Particularly as the solar eclipse on the 14th is also in Libra as well, but forges a challenging link with Uranus. Now, later in the month, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on where you live, how you live there, and who with. You're also going to have potentially some worldly demands coming from the last of the Taurus-Scorpio Eclipse series, which occurs on the 28th. So can't wait to share that with you. Both Mercury and Jupiter, along with Mars, are threaded through that eclipse, which adds to the sense of anticipation. I'd just like to share a very exciting opportunity with you. If you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast now, based on your personal birth data, I'll prepare for you the rest of year 2023 free of charge. Plus, in my special 30% off package, you can get your character analysis report, your life roadmap. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but give you a much more intimate understanding of how to make the most of these. Please see beneath this video for more. And finally, if you've yet to watch your year 2024 zodiac forecast, please see the link below where you can do so for free. So as you make your way into October, so the Sun and Mars, as I mentioned, are in the sign of Libra. This is a sign very much to do with balance, fairness, relating. It's an air sign, so communication, very important, particularly in terms of everyday communication, whether it's with the people immediately around us, such as neighbours or siblings, or the people we encounter through social media. So the third house is a very lively position for the Sun to be. But also, in the first week of this month, Venus, which has been with you since the 5th of June, forges a brilliant alliance to Mars. Your ability to convey the best of yourself is definitely going to be turned up to max with these two collaborating so well. This could lead to a floaty conversation. It may mean that you're going to share something that's really exciting in terms of an idea, particularly if you're a creative person. You want to showcase your style and flair. But also, as this month begins, so Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, comes to the end of its journey in your sign, where it's been for the last 9 months. It's moving into your second house, which is a very sensual location, but the sign of Virgo, the host, can be a little bit on the cool side, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of what you can expect in the next 9 months. If there are things that you really yearn for around your romantic existence, increasing the more sensuous side of contact through touch would be a little bit of a pointer. Now on the 5th, Mercury, the planet of communication, moves out of Virgo, where it's terrific for grappling with the detail of situations, but it's been afflicted by the long process of the retrograde and the pre and post shadow period. That began at the end of July, so if you have been grappling with your everyday finances since then, it really wouldn't be a surprise. But now Mercury speeds up. It's joining the Sun and Mars in your third house. So expect messages to be pinging in backwards and forwards, and a greater sense of buzz and vibrancy. But also from the 3rd through to the 12th, Mars in Libra is in rather an abrasive right angle with Pluto. Pluto's the planet of compulsions, even obsessions, but it's very much the planet of power. And since 2008, it's been asking you to be more self-sacrificing in your life, or to make sure that your everyday routines are working just as they can. So you have a conflict between Mars's desire to articulate its ideas passionately but also quickly in the 3rd house, and Pluto in some ways can limit Mars's desire to be free to express those points of view. So there can be some tensions, and you may need to choose from the 3rd to the 12th some of the things you decide to do, because clearly you can't do it all. And if someone is almost like trying to guilt you into doing something to help them, what Mars is saying is that you need to speak out and say no. But also on the 9th, Venus ends its journey in your sign. Wow, what an experience it's been. But it moves into Virgo, where it is detrimented, and it is in an opposition almost straight away with Saturn. This becomes exact on the 10th. Now, ordinarily, when Venus moves into the 2nd solar house, it will trigger an uptick in finances. And because Mercury may have seen you having to really work at keeping your income sweet, or working on the details of where you can create some economies or savings, I think Venus being opposed by Saturn suggests that somebody close to you may not see things the same way when it comes to the household budget, or even your desire to splash out on something that they may see as being rather frivolous. Or it may be you that's reminding other people of the need to be cautious with resources. Just know that once Venus has escaped the attentions of Saturn, I feel that it can bring some money your way. It just requires at this juncture a little bit of patience. The 11th sees Pluto end its long retrograde, which began on the 1st of May. Initially it was in your 7th house of relating, then inverted on the 11th of June back into the 6th house. It's going to stay there through to the 21st of January next year. So if there are still things you want to reform, particularly around your work, this is the time to really get busy on that plan. But on the 12th, Mars moves out of the sign of Libra and into the sign of Scorpio. Why this is particularly significant is that Mars governs this sign. So it really is at home here, but for you, home is the operative word, because Mars moves into your 4th house. But Mars can still be quite impatient even here, and the 4th house can be quite prickly. If people don't quite get your meaning, it could be over the following 6 weeks. You could find yourself being a little bit more defensive. So on the 14th, we have a solar eclipse also in the sign of Libra, augmenting that early presence of the Sun and Mars, and then Mercury. Mars, of course, now having made way. But the solar eclipse in Libra is the first of a new series in that sign and the sign of Aries, which will last over the next 18 months. Now, this gives you a great opportunity to showcase your thinking, your mode of expression, but also if you have ideas you want to share with others that you feel are inspirational, have belief that there is a market or an audience for what you have to say. But it is in a clash with Uranus, which is in a very dominant part of your situation. If there are new ideas you want to bring into your work situation, someone may resist that because they want you to conform with their expectation of how they see you fitting into their structure, organisation or role. So I think there can be a lot of thinking with you over the next 6 months, even a year and a half, about exactly how you fit into the wider world, so in terms of employment. But the 19th to the 21st sees Mercury in a tense right angle with Pluto. To be honest, I think this could have quite an impact on your nervous energy. Mercury does rule the nervous system, and Pluto in the 6th house is very much about your physical health. You may find yourself feeling a little bit more charged up. Ideas or points of view may become something that you identify with so strongly that you can find yourself at odds with others who see things a different way. Actually, on the 22nd, Mercury joins up with Mars in Scorpio. Now, Mercury in Scorpio is a very deep and passionate and intense transit because Mercury here becomes very subterranean. You could find yourself thinking very carefully about the family dynamics you're in, or even about where you live. You also might start to decode some people's responses. And it's not necessarily what they're saying, it's what they really mean. But also, the Sun then clashes with Pluto itself. So this is the third clash. First of all, we had Mars, then Mercury, and now the Sun, all in a right angle with Pluto. So I think all of this can create quite a lot of stress this month if you're trying to divert your energies in too many directions. There's part of you that wants to reinvigorate your outlook, but there's another part of your situation which is dominated by your obligations and responsibilities, and the two may not necessarily work side by side completely in a unified way. It could be that your thinking is actually seeing you want to break free of some of the responsibilities and obligations you have. Nonetheless, the Sun does move to join up with Mars and Mercury in Scorpio on the 23rd. And that brings us to the last phase of the month, which is very much about getting in touch with how you feel about things. Now, that's something that may seem a pretty obvious thing for all of us to do. Being governed by the Sun, your optimism and radiance are your greatest strengths. But maybe at times you don't like to show your vulnerabilities because you feel that's showing a weakness. And what the stars are really asking you to do at the end of this month is to get much more in touch with how things feel, become much more conscious of your immediate environment, anything to do with your personal or physical or emotional security are going to amp up in importance. Now, it just so happens that Jupiter, along with Uranus, is right at the top of your chart, and it could bring an opportunity as this month draws to a close, along with the lunar eclipse, but it may mean that you have to push for some role or go for an interview or do a presentation just when you're more preoccupied with the roots of your existence in terms of where you live and how you live there. But do try to push through, because as much as the Sun forges a glittering alliance with Mercury on the 20th, the Cazimi, which is brilliant for you speaking and sharing ideas, once Mercury and Mars connect exactly on the 29th, you may have to share your emotions, but this could be in a way which makes you feel more exposed, whereas the Mercury Cazimi is more cerebral, more about your mind. Later in the month, that conjunction between Mars and Mercury is much more reactive. So you may find yourself opening up about a subject you haven't discussed for some while, and it could see your feelings much closer to the surface, which could feel somewhat uncomfortable. Nonetheless, if you're wanting to change where you live, whether it's remodel it, redecorate it, or adapt it in some kind of way, or move altogether, the end of this month, pivoting between the home desires you have and your emotional desires and the demands that come from the outer world are going to be quite considerable. But I still think there's a huge opportunity. And don't be surprised if you do change your job in the next 6 months. But it needs to be a job that stimulates your mind more, particularly if you are feeling rather bored in a current role that maybe is a bit too workaday, maybe it doesn't challenge you enough, maybe you enjoy it, maybe you're really appreciated, maybe you do good things for others. But if it's not really switching on your mind, it won't be switching on your senses, and it's important to feel passionate. So I think that's all what you're going to be reflecting on as this month comes to a close. But obviously how things feel and whether you feel sure enough to make a move in a different direction will depend on listening to your gut instincts in a very attentive way. Please remember that your year 2024 deep dive astrology forecast is beneath this video. But for now, thank you so much for joining me. please like, comment, share or subscribe.